An urban explorer captured creepy footage inside a secret warren of Nazi weapon tunnels. But before we start, please give the video a like and make sure to subscribe to WonderBot and hit the bell so you'll never miss any uploads from us. Urban explorer Warren Tepper and his friend Matt are on borrowed time, traipsing through an underground tunnel. They know a security van circles somewhere overhead, but they keep pushing on deeper into the historic bunker. And it's a good thing they do. What they're about to uncover with the tunnels will astonish them and the public too. Indeed, the site they chose to explore has a very lengthy, potentially dark history. The bunker seems to have played a part in World War II, and its location points to who may have used it. The tunnels snake beneath the city of Duisburg, Germany, a city held by the Nazis until the Allied forces took over the area. That historical draw could have been what pushed Tepper and Matt to advance further into the underground tunnels. Still, they didn't have time to research what they might find before their journey into the depths. So as they ventured inside, they didn't expect to find one terrifying vestige of a bygone, violent era: Germany under Adolf Hitler. Not every structure built in the era's past remains in use today. What's more, historic or otherwise interesting buildings don't always get preserved. Instead, owners abandon them, and they sit untouched for years to come. And that's just what urban explorers look for as part of their unique hobby. Urban explorers seek out such neglected and otherwise abandoned structures. They also look for underground components or otherwise hidden pieces of known buildings. They grab recording devices and cameras and head inside, documenting the interesting sights and sounds they experience. Such a hobby is not without its risks, however. For one thing, many buildings toured by urban explorers are privately owned. As such, their journeys inside can technically be considered trespassing. On top of that, crumbling structures can present these hobbyists with physical dangers too. Nevertheless, urban explorers such as Warren Tepper persist in their search for and exploration of abandoned buildings and derelict places. According to his website, the native of Hampshire is motivated by a desire to see how buildings are now and picture how they used to be. To that end, the Englishman makes a point to capture as much as possible of what he sees on film, and for good reason. Tepper wrote on his website, "I like to take pictures and videos of all the places I visit to document my time there, as one day they'll be gone, lost in time." Nevertheless, he makes a point of respecting the places he explores too. He added, "When I'm exploring, I don't damage or break anything. I take only pictures and videos of my time at the places I visit, creating memories." And sometimes Tepper decides to share those memories with fellow urban explorers. In the case of his 2018 trip to Duisburg, Germany, Tepper didn't go it alone. Instead, he went with fellow abandoned structure enthusiast Matt, who co-runs a YouTube channel called Finders Beepers. He and his partner Andy typically explore urban remnants of the UK. On this occasion, however, Matt joined Tepper to check out Duisburg, and more specifically a series of underground tunnels that sits just beneath the surface of a former industrial area. It won't be easy to explore them though. Matt makes that clear as he narrates a video of himself and Tepper on their trek into the historic underbelly of the German city. Matt and Tepper spend quite a bit of time walking to locate the spot, marking the entry to the tunnels. The former estimates that they've been walking for about 3 miles before they find where they might get in. But they're not out of the woods. The grounds have security. Matt explains, "We've got to keep an eye out for a little white van." Luckily for Matt and Tepper, the security guard never shows up. This gives the pair time to survey the scene and figure out what it is they're actually seeking. At this point, Matt admits that even they're not quite sure. He says, "We're just coming into sight of some structures, some buildings, but I don't know what it is." Matt has an explanation for his and Tepper's lack of knowledge though. He says, "We've only been really given a bit of information about this place, that there's some holes with bunkers." Later, he explains further that the bunkers appear to have been used as protection during World War II. Matt further explains, "Obviously these bunkers were used in World War II. I don't know much more than that though. I don't know what they were used for, whether it was for the city to come here, the people, the workers, or what. There was another big factory over there, so I don't know if it was used for that." A look inside of the tunnels would help Matt and Tepper to understand the structure's significance though. The pair follows what appears to be a beaten path, assuming it will lead to a tunnel entrance. Eventually they find a small rocky hole which appears to be the way inside. Matt laments, "You weren't kidding about it being a little hole." As soon as Matt and Tepper progress into the tunnels, though, they realize that they won't be stuck in cramped conditions. The corridor stretches far into the earth with plenty of head clearance. Matt describes, it goes on for miles. In fact, at one point, Tepper gets so far ahead of his urban exploring partner that he disappears from view. At first, it seems as all that Tepper and Matt will find are the tunnels themselves. A few minutes into their trek, the only thing of note that they find is a toad leaping through the darkened hallways. Matt jokes, "So there's still life down here, it's not totally abandoned." But in the tradition of urban exploring, Tepper and Matt continue onward, delving deeper into the tunnels. Eventually, they come to a grate-like structure blocking their path. Tepper wonders, what on earth is this? What are these things? He eventually realizes that he and Matt have come to a metal door, one that won't budge. Both Tepper and Matt somehow manage to wiggle through the door's bars to continue their adventure. Next, they find items that appear to be insulated, according to Matt. Tepper suggests that their function is connected to air filtering, which would be an invaluable asset for an underground facility. As Tepper and Matt continue into the tunnels, they hear something surprising: the sounds of a busy roadway overhead. Matt wonders, why can I hear cars? Tepper replies, oh my god, no way. This auditory clue reveals just how close the historic structure sits to civilization. Matt observes, you wouldn't even know this was here. Still, the most surprising discovery is yet to come for Matt and Tepper. At first, Matt thinks he's found the heavy-duty door to a furnace of some sort, but Tepper dispels that notion. He soon realizes what the pair has found, and bearing in mind the bunker's potential ties to World War II and the Nazis, their discovery is an exciting one. Tepper is the first to grasp what the pair's found. He exclaims, actually, do you know what this is? This is an indoor firing range for the big turret guns. Look at this metal. He then points out mangled panels of armor that still line the room, insinuating that they've been damaged by firing practice. Matt doesn't believe him at first, countering that the metal is simply rusted over time. But Tepper shows him more precise evidence. He says, look, you can see the bullet indentations and fragments, and where they've gone through the wood at the back. And look at the fragments at the side. This is a proper ammo testing facility. Upon closer examination, Matt becomes convinced that Tepper's correct. He realizes the wood behind the bullet hole-riddled metal is matching damage, but the tops of the planks, presumably out of the firing zone, remain in good shape. Then the urban explorer ponders the size and power of a weapon capable of the damage that he's seeing. For one thing, the bullets tore through the metal completely, emerging through the other side of the sheet. Matt notes scuff marks and chunks missing to illustrate the weapon's power. He and Tepper also happen to find an intact bullet, which shocks them too. Matt describes, you can see the lines, striation on the side of it. Oh mate, I didn't expect this. The discoveries don't end with the weapons testing room though. Eventually, Matt and Tepper happen upon what the latter describes as a big blast door. The safeguard has a small hole in it though, which would have allowed the tunnel's occupants to shoot out at invaders should the tunnels become besieged. Another sign that the bunkers had a wartime role comes when Matt and Tepper wander into a really old part of the tunnels, as Matt describes it. He walks through a series of doors until he finds one with a label. Munitions room, he exclaims. The storage area for weapons and ammo would have been heavily guarded to stop people from getting in there, Matt surmises. With so much evidence, it's safe for Matt to proclaim that he and Tepper have indeed stumbled upon a piece of history. He says, these are definitely full-on World War II, maybe even World War I bunkers. And surprisingly, the urban explorers have a few more discoveries to make before they leave the tunnels. For one thing, Matt happens to notice a once shiny object on the floor of the bunker. He says, just found this little key on the floor, just down there. Tepper reckons it's potentially a handcuff key, although Matt feels the key is a bit too large to have opened handcuffs. Tepper counters, the Germans always liked their things bigger and better, didn't they? Tepper and Matt then wade through standing water to find what appears to be a garage. The cavernous space has an even more interesting feature though. As Tepper describes it, there's a nighttime cashier's booth. The small room has a bit of added mystery. It's riddled with bullet holes. Noticing that, Matt hypothesizes, so this has been under attack at some point, and he has a good idea of who could have come in and fired upon the Nazi bunker. He talks about the nearby city of Aachen, the first city that was taken by the Americans and the Belgians on German soil. After that, Matt explains, the Allies made their way all the way around this area. So the pair supposed the cashier's booth would have been where the Nazis checked visitors' credentials before letting them further into the tunnels. But the bullet holes signified that the entrance may have also seen unwanted visitors passing through, presumably the Allied forces during World War II, who eventually defeated the Nazi regime. With that discovery, it's time for Tepper and Matt to make their way out of the underground bunkers. They return to their car, where they review their incredible finds during the day. Matt, for one, can't believe what they found. He says, "That was brilliant. I didn't expect it at all." Viewers of Matt's YouTube channel, Finders Beepers, History Seekers, were energized by the duo's findings as well. For one viewer wrote, "That was a great explore, guys. Very interesting. Thanks very much for this. Love every minute of it." Another added, "Those tunnels look amazing." Others imagined what it might have been like to man such a structure during conflict. Someone pondered, "That firing glass door was scary. Imagine sitting behind it." Soon enough, the press caught wind of the video too, and they had some more theories as to what the bunkers may have been used for in its day. According to British newspaper The Sun, Duisburg-based tunnel system could have been a World War II shelter for Nazis during the bombing from Allied forces. But it also had its own bombardment system, where ammunition was tested on steel plates. Obviously, Tepper and Matt had found solid evidence to corroborate the latter theory. But other hypotheses put the Nazi dictator Adolf Hitler into the bunkers at some point too. Indeed, he may have visited the underground facility as a secret meeting spot, and considering their covert nature, such a use is certainly not beyond the bounds of possibility. Afterward, Tepper spoke to The Sun in September 2018 and reflected on the experience of discovering such a structure. He said that when he realized exactly what they were standing in and what it was used for, he became giddy. As he put it, "I was like a kid in a candy store." And it seemed as though the trip through the World War II bunker had imprinted itself on Tepper's mind for the foreseeable future, as it marked many firsts for the urban explorer. He told TV network Fox News, "It's the biggest set of tunnels I've explored, and it was my first abandoned exploration that I've done outside of England." Since then, Tepper has continued to expand his urban exploring horizons. In the spring of 2019, for instance, he traveled to the Ukraine to visit what remains of the city of Pripyat after the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. In his personal life, he's embarked on a new adventure too. He and his wife, Carmel, welcomed their son in the summer of 2019.